Hello and welcome to the weekly Pre-Shabbat AGJC Zoom call. Each week we gather together the Jewish communities of all 6 GCC countries and our families and friends from around the world to hear an inspirational message before Shabbat, light candles, hear a Dvar Torah, pray, and read a section from the weekly Torah portion. Today we will hear from Dr. Dan Diker, President of the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, who will speak about sovereignty, security, and stability, Bahrain, Israel, and the Abraham Alliance. The Association of Gulf Jewish Communities is the umbrella organization for the Jewish communities of the 6 GCC countries that are building and enhancing Jewish life in the region. While each community is independent, we share a common goal and vision for Jewish life to flourish in the Gulf for the benefit of both residents and visitors. To stay updated on AGJC events, please follow us on Twitter at @GulfJewish and visit our website www.gulfjewish.org. Shabbat Shalom and continue to pray for peace to prevail around the world.
Thank you so much, Huda. And now we will go to Sue, who's going to light this week's Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, tzivanu l'hadlikeh shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much. And now we will head to Alex, who's going to lead us in Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi likat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shahamor v'zachor b'dibur echad ishmiyanu el hameyuchad. Adonai echad ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה, קום יצאי מתוך הפכה, רהב לך שבט בימי הבכה, והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי, ואת אדוני תריצי. על יד איש בן פרסי, ונשמחה ונגילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני ים סגולה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Thank you very much, Alex. And now it's my honor to introduce Dr. Dan Diker, the president of the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. Dr. Diker is a recognized world expert on delegitimization of Israel, anti-Semitism, and U.S.-Israel affairs and the Palestinian-Israeli relations. He authored 6 books on the global BDS and delegitimization phenomena. He also authored and edited numerous books on national security. And his publications include Islamophobia in the West, BDS Unmasked, Students for Justice in Palestine, Unmasked, and Defeating Anti-Normalization, Shared Palestinian and Israeli Perspectives on a New Path to Peace. He also wrote, directed, and produced the research video Brief, a South African critique of the Israeli apartheid accusation. Dan directed the JCPA Center for Contemporary Diplomacy from 2006 to 2010, which brought together foreign ambassadors, Israeli government ministers, and top military leaders. He also served as a policy advisor to the 24th Knesset Forum Against BDS and Political Warfare, chaired by Minister Shikli. He also has written speeches for government ministers, MKs, and advised on U.S.-Israel relations. It's now our honor to invite him to speak with us today.
Thank you ever so much. Can you all hear me? Fine, do I come through?
Yes.
Yes. First of all, thank you for that introduction, which is just about as long as the time that you budgeted to me. But I think it was my mom, I think it was my mom in New York who wrote that introduction, so I'm going to have to tell her to cut it down a little bit. So I'm absolutely honored, Ambassador Nunu and all of you in the family of the Association of Gulf Jewish Communities, and especially the community of Bahrain, the Jewish community of Bahrain. It is such an honor to be able to share this Kabbalat Shabbat with you from Jerusalem, Manama and Jerusalem, 2 of the great centers of not only Jewish life, but life in the Middle East. And though I am a child of Jerusalem, I feel like I'm an adopted son of Manama and Bahrain, having visited for the first time just a number of months ago. And I felt so welcomed and so secure as a kippah-wearing Jew walking through the market and talking to local people, as I had meetings with senior government officials there, but it was the people, it was just the people, you know, on the, that I exchanged views with in the market and in the restaurants that really left a lasting impression as to the moral clarity and the moral strength of Bahrain in this entire drama that we all in the Middle East are experiencing right now. Let me just say that it is really timely that we're talking about sovereignty, security, and stability, Bahrain, Israel, and the Abraham Alliance. I chose those words carefully, and I'll explain to you in the next just very few minutes before the rabbi why. This week's Torah Parsha is Vayit Hanan, and it's no coincidence that when we talk about security, sovereignty, and stability, that Moshe Rabbeinu's beseeching of Am Yisrael in our journey to sovereignty talks about how do we build a society based on halakha, based on Jewish law, that under the sovereignty of God, compassion, dignity, and these are the underpinnings, the moral underpinnings of any sense of sovereignty. And clearly, sovereignty and security today, as the Bnei Yisrael 3,500 years ago were moving into their first attempt at national sovereignty, our sovereignty as Bahrainis, as Jews, as Israelis is under attack unquestionably, as we in Jerusalem and throughout Israel are waiting to see what will happen with the Iranian regime and their terror proxy network. And as everyone knows, and as a dear friend of mine from Bahrain said the other day, please know that Israel is fighting our war, meaning the Middle East war, because the threat to the sovereignty of Israel and to the sovereignty of the Jewish people as a collective is also a war on the stability and sovereignty of the Middle East, as it is on the West. And it is very telling that we stand at such a critical moment in the sovereignty and security of the Middle East, as the Iranian regime today is banking on a promise that it made 45 years ago when it said death to America and death to Israel. And it's no coincidence, perhaps, that those words were just the other day repeated by Yemen's Houthi Ansar Allah Islamist organization, who said God is greatest, death to America, death to Israel, curse upon the Jews, Islam. So what we were facing 3,500 years ago when we had to pass our adversaries on our way to Eretz Israel, we are facing today. And clearly, those who stand with moral clarity, and I want to repeat that Bahrain has been a leader in the moral strength and clarity of the entire Middle East, together, I believe, with Israel and other neighbors, as we stand opposite a malign Iranian regime that wishes us and is attempting to undermine our collective sovereignty. But here's the good news. The good news is that Bahrain and Israel, two of the smallest countries in the region, have made two of the greatest contributions in the region. And let me say, please, that it is such an honor to be part of the Abraham Accords, which it is all too little known what an important leadership role Bahrain made in not only in the Abraham Accords, but in the pathway in the years before the Abraham Accords. And I mean to say that, first of all, when you look at the Peace to Prosperity workshop that took place in 2019, that required a tremendous moral and strategic vision, hosted in Manama, and really sanctioned by His Majesty and His Excellency, the Bahraini leadership, against the entire current of Middle Eastern thinking for decades, which was, as everybody on this call knows, that if you have to solve the Palestinian issue first, otherwise the Middle East will not come into order, will not experience security and sovereignty and stability. And it was Bahrain quietly, and we know this in Israel, and we owe the Bahraini government and the people of Bahrain a great debt for this type of thinking, to say, no, our region is much larger than the Palestinian issue. And if Mahmoud Abbas, as he said just the other day, up in an address to the Turkish parliament, he blessed Ismail Haniyeh, and he said he will go from Gaza to Jerusalem and the martyrs of Jerusalem, and again degraded Israel and the collective Jewish community. We understood that that was not going to stop the future of security and sovereignty in the Middle East. And allow me to say that Ambassador Nunu's path-breaking role from 2007 to 2013, with the first Jew and the first woman to represent a Middle Eastern country to Washington, was the type of normalization pathway that showed the West what could be possible in the Middle East. And I do know this from a personal conversation I had. I haven't had the honor yet of meeting the ambassador, but other than on this call, but I do hope to have that soon. And I do know that as she became the ambassador to the United States from Bahrain, I had a personal conversation with Ambassador Dennis Ross and asked him, Ambassador Ross, why is it that all of your books, alone and together with the analyst David Makovsky, focus on the Palestinian issue, so many thousands of pages, as opposed to the Middle East itself? Now, this was back in 2019, and he said, you know, it's an interesting point you make, because when Secretary of State Rice, Condoleezza Rice, went to the Gulf in 2008, she was sent with instructions about how to beseech, if we use the language of the parasha, Vayitchanan, to beseech the Gulf leadership about how to solve this Palestinian issue, and put pressure on Israel for additional concessions in order to try to pin down the Palestinian issue. The answer she received, said Ambassador Ross, was, Madam Secretary of State, we are worried and concerned and going to address the Iranian threat. That is a much deeper issue for the entire Middle East than the Palestinian issue itself. So there you have it, a visionary moment and a teachable moment that the Gulf leadership has provided, and that led ultimately to the Abraham Accords. And I would say, and I think many in Israel agree, the other Israeli here, my dear friend Eric Rubin, may well agree, having been very involved, I think, with Middle Eastern affairs and U.S.-Israel relations, The Abraham Accords are the most consequential development in the modern political history of the Middle East. Full stop. Full stop. And this is known in Israel, and I think that Israel, the people of Israel, Jews, Christians, Muslims, Circassians, Druze, all of us are deeply, deeply appreciative of what Bahrain did and what our Gulf, what the United Arab Emirates has done, and the blessings of Saudi Arabia, of course, and our friends in Morocco, and even the Sudanese government, who changed course from the 3 no's to the 4 yeses, as I would call it in a summary form. Let me say that make one more point, and that is the title of today's 7 minutes. And I hope I've stayed relatively within a standard deviation before turning it over to the rabbi of 8 or 9 minutes, is that we called this Sovereignty, Security, and Stability of Bahrain, Israel, and the Abraham Alliance. And I use the word alliance instead of accords, because it was none else than Prime Minister Netanyahu in front of the joint houses of Congress very recently, who proposed something called the Abraham Alliance. And Bahrain has proven among all Middle Eastern countries that it has taken a leadership position in creating a security alliance with Israel. It proved it on the 14th of April. It proved it when the National Security Advisor said in Aspen, in the Security Conference just a few weeks ago, that the Abraham Accords is what other people should join. Bahrain was the first Arab country to join the Guardian of the Red Sea Alliance in order to protect shipping lanes. So Bahrain and Israel are partners in not only in economic matters and not only in social, but in securing our region. And we have a tremendous challenge ahead of us, but I'm fully confident, Bezrat Hashem, in Yirtzeh Hashem, as the Bnei Yisrael successfully went in to Eretz Yisrael and formed security and sovereignty, at least for the first 1,000 years, that we will be successful together as the Jewish communities of Bahrain and the Gulf and all the communities of Israel to stand strong in the face of unrelenting enmity. But we will prevail, Bezrat Hashem, as we have in our long and storied history together. Thank you so much for the few minutes I have to share with you, and I look forward to having more Kabbalat Shabbat and visiting Bahrain, which we intend to do in the coming couple of months.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diker, for speaking with us today. I think that the timing was really perfect because on Tuesday we celebrated 4 years since the UAE made their announcement. We're about 3.5 weeks out from September 11th when Bahrain made their announcement, and about a month out from the auspicious date, September 15th, when I think some people actually who are on the line had a firsthand view on the White House lawn as that document was signed, that really, to your point, forever changed not just the Middle East, but I think it provided a sense of hope that Jews all around the world really had not seen before. And in many ways, what's going on right now in the world, it's also inspiring because we know that those accords were for the long run, they're for the long term. And I think the Jews who are on today's call from the GCC countries are proof that it's as strong as ever, the bond. And you made a comment about a couple weeks back. I'm sure a lot of people here saw that video from Sheikh Nasser in Bahrain, who said that they are just as committed today as they were then. So we thank you for speaking with us. And now we will head over to Rav Kobi, who's the UK Director of Education at the Rabbi Sachs Legacy, who I know also there are a lot of Rabbi Sachs followers on today's Zoom. He's been quoted many a time here. And so again, thank you to Dr. Diker, and thank you so much, Rav Ibrahimov, for speaking with us and sharing some words of Divrei Torah.
Thank you, Ariella. It's a tremendous honor and privilege to be here today. Dr. Diker, when I looked at the program, I was wondering why you were given 8 minutes and I was given 4 minutes, but after hearing you, I understand perfectly why. It was absolutely fascinating. And interestingly enough, really ties in beautifully to the Dvar Torah I wanted to share. I also wanted to thank you for sparing a minute, because you actually had 8 minutes rather than 7. But as you know, 8 is a number which is lemala midech hateva, supernatural. And what you've achieved, what Israel has achieved, what so many people on this call have achieved is indeed supernatural. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. On behalf of everyone, no matter where we are in the world, we are benefiting from the wonderful work that you and others are doing. Abraham was promised that 3,800 years ago that we will be like the sand on the shore, on the seashore. We will be like the stars in heaven. And I want to ask you today, has that actually happened? Has that materialized? Has the promise been fulfilled? Well, as Rabbi Sachs teaches us, we are now just a bit less than 0.2% of the population of the world. We are not numerous. I don't think that we would account for the grains of sand on the seashore or the stars in heaven. Well, in fact, in this week's Parsha, Moses turns to us and says, Lo merubchem mikol ha'amim. It's not because of your numerous, not because of the numerous of the peoples that Hashem has chosen you. Vayivchar bachem, that is not the reason. Ki atem ha'me'at mikol ha'amim, because you are the smallest of all pupils, of all peoples. So if you are the smallest and you are not the most numerous, why is it that God has promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that we will be like the grains of sand on the seashore or the stars in heaven? After all, we have not seen this promise being fulfilled, and Moses is telling us that we have not been chosen for being numerous. So what is the reason to these promises, and why are they important to us? Rabbi Sachs goes on to quote Rabbeinu Bachye. Rabbeinu Bachye is a 14th century commentator living in Spain, and he goes on to share a beautiful explanation on this pasuk, and he explains that you do not need to be numerous in order to be great. It may very well be the case that the promise will be fulfilled in the future. We might become numerous, however, we are great. And what makes us great is not necessarily our numbers. It is indeed our faith, our ambition to bring good and change the world, but most importantly, the understanding that we are not only fighting on behalf of ourselves, we are fighting on behalf of the world. We are fighting on behalf of justice. We are calling the name of God, and we are sharing the goodness, the kindness, and the power of Torah. I believe with all my heart that there are so many more people than the 6 or 7 million Jews living in Israel, or the 15 or 16 million Jews living around the world, who are following our message, who are praying for our success, because our ability to succeed is the world's ability to connect to the values of Torah. And that is our greatness. And that is where our numbers grow and grow. In many other religions, you will see that people are trying to convert others to join their religion. We don't do the same. We don't try to persuade people to join us. On the contrary, in many ways, sometimes we were to reject converts and say, why would you want to join us? The reason that we do so is because it's not about the numbers. It's not about convincing people to become Jewish. It's about sharing the light with the world and about sharing the values of Torah. And therefore, this parsha, Vayetchanan, where we read the Haftarah of Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, our nation shall be comforted. This is a source of tremendous comfort for us. This is a source of us saying, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami. We draw comfort from our eternity, for the greatness of Torah and our ability to shine a bright light upon the world. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. And I think I'll go as far as to say, I think your words also are very comforting during a time like this. So we thank you. I see a lot of head nodding. I hope you got to see that as well. I always wonder if rabbis get to see the reaction when they're standing at the front of the pulpit, but I hope you did see that your words really did mean a lot to us. So thank you for joining us, and we hope that you'll be back with us soon. And now we'll head back to Alex, who's going to lead us in the reading of the parsha.
אתה ראית לדעת כי אדוני הוא אלוהים אין עוד מלבדו מן השמיים השמיעך את קולו ליחזקה על הארץ ערך את אישו הגדולה ודבריו שמעת מתוך האש ותחת כי אהב את אבותיך ויבחר בזרעו אחריו ויוציאך בפניו בכוחו הגדול ממצרים להוריש גויים גדולים ועצומים ממך מפניך להביאך לתת לך את ארצם נחלת היום הזה וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת עינות ושמרת את חוקיו ואת מצוותיו אשר אנוכי מצווך היום אשר ייטב לך ולבניך אחריך ולמען תאריך ימים על האדמה אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך כל הימים.
Thank you, Alex, and now we'll head to Eric. Sorry, we'll head to Eric for the English translation.
It has been clearly demonstrated to you that Adonai alone is God. There is none else. From the heavens, God let you hear the divine voice to discipline you. On earth, God let you see the great divine fire, and from amidst that fire, you heard God's words. And having loved your ancestors, God chose their heirs after them. God personally, in great divine might, led you out of Egypt, to drive you from your path nations greater and more populous than you, to take you into their land and assign it to you as a heritage, as is still the case. Know therefore this day and keep in mind that Adonai alone is God in heaven above and on earth below. There is no other. Observe God's laws and commandments, which I enjoin upon you this day, that it may go well with you and your children after you, and that you may long remain in the land that your God Adonai is assigning to you for all time.
Thank you so much, Eric. Now we'll head back to Alex for the Chief Rabbi of the UK's prayer.
אבינו אבינו שבשמיים צור ישראל וגואלו אבינו אבינו שבשמיים צור ישראל וגואלו באנו לפניך בתפילה ובתחנונים תמהים ושברי לב על המכות האכזריות אשר הוכתה ארצנו הקדושה ועמך ישראל ביום אשר הפכה חגינו לאבל. אנו מתאבלים על אבדון 100 אנשים, נשים וטף אשר נרצחו בזדון ומתפללים על נפשותם. אבינו מלכנו, שלח רפואה שלמה לאלפי פצועי עמך. אבינו מלכנו, רחם על אחינו השבויים והוציאם מאפלה וצל מוות לגאולה. מוסכותיהם תפתחנו ומצוקותיהם הצילם והשיבם מהרה לחיק משפחותיהם. אבינו מלכנו, הגן על משפחות ישראל מאימת מוות וחזק חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל אשר שמים נפשם בכפם בהצביעם לקראת אויבינו. אבינו מלכנו אשר בידך לב מלכים ושרים, תקם בעצה טובה מלפניך את שרי ישראל לנצח במלחמתם כדי שיהיו תושבי השננים מעין מחריד. אבינו מלכנו, פחוס סוכת שלומך על יושבי ארצך ככתוב, ונתתי שלום בארץ ושכבתם באם מחריד, והשבעתי חיה רעה מן הארץ וחרב לא תעבור בארצכם. בכינו אבינו בביטחון ושלווה, ושים שלום אמיתי וקיים על מדינת ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ארצך. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ויעלה כל ישראל, ויאמרו Amen.
Thank you very much, Alex. And now we'll go back. This is my favorite part where we go back and forth. Now we'll go back to Eric, who's going to lead us in the prayer for the GCC.
May he who gives salvation to kings and dominion to princes, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, who delivers his servant David from the evil sword, who makes a way in the sea and a path through the mighty waters, bless and protect, guard and help, exalt, magnify, and uplift His Majesty the King of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty the King of Bahrain, His Majesty the Sultan of Oman, His Highness the President of the UAE, His Highness the Emir of Kuwait, His Highness the Emir of Qatar, and all their crown princes. And may the Supreme King of Kings in His mercy put a spirit of wisdom and understanding into their hearts and the hearts of all their counselors and officials to deal kindly with us, the house of Jacob, and all the people of this land. Be their shelter and stronghold, and let them not falter. In their days and in ours, may these lands be blessed with stability, prosperity, and peace. May this be His will, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Before I turn it back to Alex, who will usher us out with Shalom Aleichem, just a quick reminder to please join us next week. We've got a really wonderful lineup of speakers. Next week, we'll have Rabbi Kenneth Block, who's a rabbi and an author. He's going to speak about his book called How to Be Jewish in 30 Seconds. We will then take off the last week of August in honor of, well, the end of summer and many people being away. And then we will return the first week in September with a dear friend of many on the call, Aviva Klumpus, who's going to speak about her new book. And because we have a pretty big British contingent on the call this week as well, that same week we will have the Rabbi Epstein from Marble Arch. He and his wife will join us as well. So we please ask that you join us next week. You could take a nice little summer break the following week, but come back and join us the first week in September. And I'll end with what I said the last 2 weeks. May this be a true Shabbat Shalom, a Shabbat of peace in Israel, for all of you who are in Israel and joining us today. And now, Alex, over to you.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malchei, Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem LeShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malchei, Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Bachuni LeShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malchei, Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzedchem LeShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malchei, Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom to you all.